Hello guys, welcome to another session. In this session, we are going to learn about targeting classes and IDs. So let's jump into the topic. So before going into the targeting the classes and IDs, let's have some basic understanding about classes and IDs in CSS. So first we will start with classes and then we will discuss about IDs. So what are classes in CSS? Classes are one of the way to describe your content in the web page or say in the HTML. We can use classes multiple times in our pages. So let's understand with an example over here. Suppose that if you are designing a form and form has multiple text boxes, and along with the text boxes we have buttons as well, and we want to keep the formatting similar to each other. So it is really be a good idea to create a CSS class and define the properties within the declaration of CSS rules, and that class is being applied to each of the text box and buttons so that you will achieve the consistency between the text boxes and the buttons. So this is about the classes. Now let's discuss about the IDs. So IDs is also being used to describe the content within the page in HTML. But IDs is unique within a page. So we can better understand with an example. Suppose we are having a page and each page is having a unique header and unique footer. So that means we can define a CSS ID for header and CSS ID for footer. And then we will provide the properties for formatting within the declaration of CSS rules. Now let's discuss about the how we can denote the class and how we can denote the IDs. Classes can be denoted by dotted notation and IDs can be denoted by hash. So whenever if you are going through CSS file and if you are finding the dotted notation, that means it is representing a class, and if you are getting the hash notation, then it is IDs. So let's jump into the Visual Studio Code and where we will learn how we can target element with classes and IDs of CSS. So we are into the Visual Studio Code, and if you find over here we have a page called contactus.html and it contains a CSS file over here which is blank, which we are going to design now, but we are going to design for this page. So here what we are having, let's look into that. We are having a div with a class called header which we are going to define, and here we are having a h1 tag, and for subheading we have used s6 tag, and here we are using for s2 tag there is single s2 tag, and we use the id called s2 header, that is the unique name over here. And then afterwards we are having two paragraphs which is again a repeated content. I have generated some lorem ipsum data. Lorem ipsum is nothing but a dummy text, we can say that, which is provided by Visual Studio Code. So how we can get the lorem in Visual Studio Code? Just you need to type lorem and enter, so it will generate this text. So if you will go here, then you will find that it has generated this text. So you can also generate it, or you can directly copy paste this example from the resource section. So for a time being, just consider that this is a dummy text and we are using it to demonstrate the paragraph. And after that we are having a br tag, then we are having an anchor tag which is pointing to the Twitter, and then afterwards we are having a span tag without any classes or IDs, and here we are using another 3 span tag which contains a single class which is representing a group. So whatever formatting we are going to design for class span, it will be applied to all these three. So let me open the tab over here. Now we understand the HTML page. Let's close this one, and here we will write the classes and IDs which will target the HTML page. So now we are going to start with h2 tag which we have seen earlier. So here we will specify h2. This is the selector over here, and the description we are going to write over here. If you remember that last time I have explained about this, if you are selecting with the element, then wherever it exists it will find it with the h2 tag. So here let me write the properties. The properties we are going to write that font size is going to be 20 pixel. Save it. But what will happen with this? It is going to target all the h2. For example, if we are having another set of h2, just an example, and here we are having some other messages, for example dummy text, and what we are going to do here, just remove this header. So what will happen if we are going to target with the h2 tag? So it will target the entire h2 tag within the page, but we don't want this. We want to target only this h2 which is having an id. So how we can target it with id, and how we can represent id? With the help of pound sign or say hash and the name of the id. So here we are using h2 header, so we will write h2 header here, and then the declaration, and here we will specify the declaration. What we are going to do, we are telling that font size 26 pixels. Save it, and let's change the color as well. So we will provide the color over here, and the color is going to be blue. One thing you must be noticed that now we are having S2 formatting as well with the ID formatting. Here we are specifying the ID. So what will happen over here, that formatting of content which is being targeted with ID overrides the formatting which is coming from element targeting. Now let's run it and see the output, how the output is coming. So to run it, just select this page, click on F1, and you will get this option, and here you need to open in browser. So see here, this is the output we got. If you remember that we have defined this dummy text with H2 element targeting. So see here, we have defined 20 pixel and the color is green, and for header this formatting we have targeted with the ID, and this override this formatting. So see here, so dummy text is in green because it was targeted with the element targeting, and this was being targeted with the ID. So let's jump into the Visual Studio Code. Now we understand that how we can target with ID. Let's move to the classes, but prior to understanding the class targeting, let's target this span element. So let's write some code for it, some CSS rule we are going to write. We are going to tell that display is blocked. Don't worry about it if you don't understand this. We will discuss about this in the later session, and then afterwards we will tell that color is going to be green. So let's look into the output, what output we are getting for this. You will see here that all the span tag is being displaying in a green, and that is a block display. If you remember that when I displayed this example prior to applying the block display, it was displaying in line. Let's look into that. Suppose if you remove this block, then what will happen? Let's look into that. So see here, all the text is being displaying in line, so that means it is an inline element. So to make it a block element so that it will display in a stack manner, so we need to convert it into block element. By default, span is an inline element. To make it block element, we need to apply the display properties as block. So let's convert it back to block. So here, Control Z and save it. Now let's look into the effect. So see here, it is a block element now. So that's the reason it is stacked on each other. Now let's target it with classes. So to apply the CSS rule on classes, we are going to use a dotted notation dot, and then we need to specify the class name. Here we are using class span CLSSPN, and then we will define the declaration, and this time we are going to tell that color of this particular class, we are going to tell that we will print this as maroon. So let's use maroon now. Save it. Now let's look into the web page. Also let me increase the font size. So font size, we will tell that it is going to be 22 pixel, so that print little bigger. Save it. Now let's jump into the browser. So see here, it has applied the maroon color and it has increased the size, and this we are achieving through targeting the element with classes. So this way you can target the group of element using CSS classes. So in summary, you have to remember that whenever if you want to target an element with ID, it should start with hash or say pound and the name of the ID, which should be applied into the ID properties. Here we are using key value pair. Here you need to specify that ID whichever you have used over here in the CSS file. Same is the case with the class targeting, and what is happening over here, we are targeting with the dotted notation, and then we need to specify the class name, and which we are using over here with the key value pair. Here we are having the key is called class, and we need to specify the name of the class whichever we have created in CSS file. So this is what I wanted to demonstrate you in this session. See you in the next session. Till then, bye bye, take care.